everybody. Is everybody here? I see there is at least 15 people who joined. Thank you so much for joining today. My name is Jelena Cingara, and I'm a classical pianist and piano teacher. And I have my doctorate in piano that I got about 4 years ago. And I'm very happy to be presenting this workshop on Debussy, who I'm sure you all love a lot. One of the most famous French composers. And what I'm going to be doing first, I'm going to be playing one piece by Debussy, and then we're going to have a lecture and discussion after. So, if any one of you plays anything by Debussy, like if you play the piano, you can also feel free to ask me questions if I can answer some of your piano questions about Debussy. And that's it. And I'm going to be playing a Suite Bergamasque. Does anybody know anything about Suite Bergamasque? What piece is that? It's one of his very early pieces, and it consists of 4 movements. First movement is prelude. The second movement is let me see. The second movement is minuet. Yes. The third movement is Clair de Lune. So Clair de Lune, one of the most famous pieces that ever existed, and the last moment is the Pas de Pied. Okay. So welcome to my presentation, and I hope you enjoy my piano playing. So now we go to the second movement, minuet. And now everybody's favorite, Claire de Lune. finally the pass appeared. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this. So I'm just wondering, why is everybody here today? What do you like about Debussy's music? Can you tell me some experience that you guys have about this? About Debussy? Uh-huh.
This is Jared in New York. How are you? It was very excellent.
Jared, how are you? Do you want to put yourself on screen? No?
I can. I just keep it off because I'm actually on some work stuff. So
sure. Okay.
Hold on, there we go. I like him because, to me, and this was actually a question I had to you. How do you classify him or compare him versus Mozart and Beethoven, for instance? You know, they're very almost demonic. You know, you can hear the Phrygian tones, the Locrian tones, and Claude is so happy to me. So I like it because, like, if I'm walking around a museum and things are uplifting, I'll put him on versus listening to, like, you know, who's the guy I'm thinking of, like Paganini, who's very staccato, and, you know, he's basically the inventor of heavy metal. It's the polar opposite of Debussy. So, like, how do you compare him to those guys? Like, they're all masterpieces. That's not really what I'm asking. It's just like, I know it's a later time as well. You know, he's way more modern than Beethoven and Mozart. So, you know, there's the atmosphere as well, which is very different. But I've always just seen him over here versus Beethoven and Mozart, which are here. To me, that's just me, and music is relative.
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, I really like it that you brought up. You feel free to ask questions. I would love to, you to participate. Okay, the thing is, like, I don't know, like, if you would classify Beethoven and Mozart as demonic, that's really interesting because, like,
well, relative to him.
Yeah, compared to him, I don't know. I think that, like, you can say that, but I think it has to do with culture as well, like the French culture. You know, like, if you listen to a lot of French music, have you listened to, like, any other composers of, like, you know, any other French composers except for him?
Some of which I have. I don't know names off the top of my head. I generally, it's funny, I could sit here and wax intellectual about composers, but pieces individually, other than, like, famous names like Beethoven's Fifth and Clair de Lune, you know, and Arabesque and stuff like that, I don't know. You know, I like Shostakovich, and, like I said, who's the guy, Paganini. I can never get that right, just because, you know, I grew up with that heavy, crazy music from the 80s and 90s. So,
I think it has to do with the French culture. You know how the French, like, compare, if you like compare, like, the French and the German culture, you know, I think Germans are, like, way more serious. Like, you know, people are, like, happy. They like to enjoy life. They're, like, you know, like they you know, they're kind of like, you can say that his kind of music is, like, much more, like, fluffier and happier compared to other.
Yeah, exactly.
Even this music that I played today, I feel like, you know, when I first started playing this piece, I felt like it was so radiant and so bright, and I felt that, you know, it would, like, cheer me up every time when I played that, and it was, like, so fulfilling, like very positive, I think. But the thing is, like you'll see later when you hear some of my lectures. Actually, I don't think I don't know. He also had kind of, like, a messy life. Like, so I don't know. Like, you know, I just think it has to do, like, all these composers. You know, like, you know, nobody's life is, like, super easy. But I just think it has to do, like, the most what I think has to do with the culture, and it has to do with because he was a 20th century composer, and, like, during his time, like, it was, like, Impressionism. You know, so
exactly.
A lot of people, like, classify him as an Impressionist composer. But
did he hate that?
Yeah, he hated it. You know so much. This is great.
Sorry, I'm a music guy.
No. Are you also a musician yourself? Yeah.
Yeah, I first thing I ever learned how to play was saxophone, but I don't really play that anymore. I play guitar primarily.
Okay.
I tried to learn violin, but I tore my rotator cuff because I also am a boxer. So that was the end. That was the end of holding up a violin like this. That wasn't going to happen. I've never learned piano, but I can, like, fake it to an extent because of, you know, knowing the chords and the keys. I can, like, fake some stuff, but I can't really play it.
So are you a professional musician?
Or no, not at all. Just for fun.
But it's good because you know a lot. So, like, yeah, he hated, actually, like, I was gonna talk. He hated that. He said that he said that people who were saying that about him, that he was impressionistic, were, like, imbeciles. He didn't like it. But I don't know. Like, a lot of people say, because, you know, a lot of his music is, like, very evocative of nature, and also, like, because during Impressionism, like, much of the Impressionist paintings were focused more on, like, the impression, right? So that was the same thing, like his music, like the atmosphere, impression, just kind of, like, you know, everything like, you know, kind of, I think with like radiance, like nature, and those are his themes as well, the themes that he explored during his music as well. Okay, so I just think that it really has to do with that, because like I know a lot of French music, and a lot of French music is just kind of like, it's not like every composer has his own style, but I feel like the same like how you feel. Like I feel like it's very much more positive, much more, you know, like kind of like it really puts you in a good mood, right? As compared to like these other composers which like explore many more it's not a, okay, you can say it, maybe you can't say demonic, but you can say like it's not as dark as the other composers.
He's more minor and melodic minor and harmonic
Yes,
minor.
yes,
Mozart and Beethoven versus like Debussy, who's clearly like that major scale happiness, like some Dorian
yeah,
in there.
yeah,
If you're
yes,
talking about modes to color it, like,
yes,
you know, the other guys are way more harmonic minor and Phrygian, and it's dark. That half step right in the beginning off of the first note, like, you know, like Jaws, you know, it's very, that's where I got like the demonic, like, you know what I mean?
yeah. It's also because the skills that he used, like you were saying, like the skills that he used in his music, that's the skills that he liked to use. And
Yeah.
also it has to do with also yeah, just like the style was more modern, the 20th century, like what, like they maybe, I don't know, but like mainly, you know, it has to do with every composer has its own style, and like that's okay, you know, like I for myself, like, you know, I like this kind of music, but I also like exploring like the darkness of but I don't feel like, I really don't feel like Beethoven and Mozart are like super dark. I think like Mozart is also very like light, positive guy. Sometimes he would be dark, but not like Beethoven. Yes, but Beethoven, because like I don't know if you caught my last class about Beethoven. Beethoven was a very like, I don't know, like just his life and everything. He was just a very kind of like more dramatic, more darker life than these other composers had. You know.
Yeah.
So
No,
I
I
think
agree.
it has to do with how, but also like most of it, I think it's cultural, because like a lot of times in the music that we explore during you know, our music school, it's like we mostly play German composers, which is like really interesting even to this day, because they're the most serious, they're the most like they're the most played everywhere. Anybody else has
Yeah.
some questions before I start? Sorry, I have to. Thank you so much. That was anybody else? A question or here and there, or some impression of the music that I played? What did you guys think about the music that I played? Nobody wants to say anything? Okay. That's fine. I really encourage participation. So if you want, even throughout my lecture, you can ask me something if you don't understand. Or okay, so let's talk about this guy. Let's talk about Claude Debussy. So everybody's like one of the most famous 20th century composers. He was a seminal force in the music of the 20th century. So why was he a seminal force? Because he developed a highly original system of harmony and musical structure that expressed the ideals to which the Impressionist and Symbolist painters and writers of his time aspired. So he was influenced by many other things. So he was influenced also by the Russian and the Far Eastern music as well. And you can hear that in his music. So let's take a look at some pictures of Debussy here that I will share with you. Just a second. I don't know if you like, you probably saw a lot of his pictures, right? Before. Just a second. And by the way, I'm so happy that this class is so popular and so many people signed up. So, because I'm happy to hear that people are listening to this kind of music still. Okay, so here he is, and when he was in 1884, the portrait was painted by Marcel Bachette. A little bit later, in 1900s, the photographers are known. Here, a little bit later, in 1908, okay, celebrated French photographer Felix Nadar. This is one of my favorite pictures. He's playing piano in the summer of 1893 in the Lutzancy home, and amongst the audience is his friend Ernest Chausson. So like, as you can see, like, you know, everybody's kind of gathered around the piano listening to his chamber music. So here we also have Debussy was such a super famous person that he was actually put on a stamp in France. And here in the background, you see Prélude d'après-midi d'un faune. This is like one of his pieces. These are the images for one of his pieces. Okay. And there's another one of his stamps also here at the end. So yeah, that's Debussy. So that you see kind of like how he looked like. Okay, just a second. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about his life. So So Debussy, of course, French composer. He was born in Saint-Germain-en-Laye. I'm sorry if there's some French people here because I'm not pronouncing it probably super correctly. And Saint-Héloïse, and he was on the northwest side of Paris. He was the oldest of the 5 children of Manuel Akil. So his father, who ran a china shop, and his mother, Victorine, a seamstress. And the shop was kind of unsuccessful, and it closed in 1864. And after this, the family moved to Paris. So here's a picture of his father. Just a second. His father, Manuel Akil. So his father was actually not only, he did many different things. So he was on a china shop. He was a traveling salesman, printer's assistant, and a clerk. And his young son took violin lessons from an early age, paid for by his aunt. So I'm just wondering, like, where is everybody here from today? Like, I see that there's people from like all over the world. If you want, you can type in the chat where you're from. If you don't want to, that's fine. But I'm just like curious because it seems to be like lots of many different cities, which is interesting. Okay. Okay. France. Oh, there's a French person. So maybe you can correct my pronunciation. Madrid. Oh, okay. How about like Spain, Italy? Okay. NYC, Budapest. Wow, excellent. Basel, Mexico from USA. Okay, awesome. Oh, Toronto. Okay, great. All right. Okay, thank you so much. Everybody was very participating with that. Okay, so Debussy's talents were evident at an early age. So yeah, like a lot of these composers, he's like, I think a lot of the times, you just have the talent and then you're recognized for it. And he was also recognized for it already by the age of 10. He was admitted to the Conservatoire de Paris, where he studied for 11 years. And his most famous teacher there was César Franck, who taught him the organ. Does anybody know who César Franck is? He was a very famous composer himself, and I'm going to show you a picture of him. And also a very famous organist. Second. Here's a really nice picture of César Franck playing the organ, which I thought was like really beautiful. Just a second. Here you go. This is a picture of him playing the organ. Okay. As you can see, organ has many different keyboards, not just like one like the piano, right? Okay, so that was one of his most famous teachers. Okay, so at the conservatory, he had a lot of disapproval from the faculty, even from his own teacher Giraud, for his failure to follow the strict rules of composition. So he was like, as a lot of these other composers, he was also like trying to break his own style, like Beethoven did as well. So Debussy went traveling with Tchaikovsky's wealthy patroness, Nadarja von Meck, and even he didn't like his music at the beginning. She said in 1880, she sent Debussy's Dance Bohemian to Tchaikovsky, and he said about it, "It's a very pretty piece, but it is much too short. Not a single idea is expressed fully. The form is terribly shriveled, and it lacks unity." So I don't know how many of you guys know that much about classical music. I hope that I'm being like clear, like with some things that I'm talking about, kind of more professional terms. So I hope that's okay. Okay. So in 1884, Debussy won France's most prestigious musical award, the Prix de Rome, with his cantata Enfant de Prodige, the prodigal son, or just a prodigy. And that prize carried with it the residence and the Villa Medici, the French Academy in Rome, to advance his studies. Okay, so we will play now from YouTube some of his music. This music that won him a great prize. Just a second. I'm just going to start from the beginning. I hope you can hear it. As you can see from the beginning, there's all these exotic sounds in the woodwinds. And these kind of wavy sounds, it's like, I think what Jared was talking about, he's very famous for that, kind of like waves, and the same motive that repeats over and over again, but like it's so beautiful that you want to hear it so many times, right? To me, this kind of reminds me of some kind of like storm at the sea, and it's just like, you know, it's just going more and more dramatic. Yeah. And beautiful melodies. Happy, positive, radiant music. And even when he's doing all these the drama is not so dramatic like in other composers. It's a little bit dramatic, right? And then it falls back down. Like he doesn't stay on his like most important places for too long, right? He just goes back down. Also, I feel like it's kind of evocative of like folk music a little bit, right? All these kind of folk music-y motives. The motive that we heard from the beginning again, one more time. This piece is not so well played. Like when I was doing the research, I was very, very surprised because I've never heard of it before. So some of his music is much more famous than this. Okay, so that's it for this. And now voice comes in. Listen to a little bit of that. Okay, that was that. Okay, so thank you so much. Just a second. Okay, so in Rome, when he was in Rome, he studied music of German composer Richard Wagner, especially his opera Tristan and Isolde. And then in 1889, he attended the Paris Royal Exposition, where he heard the Javanese gamelan. So that's a musical ensemble that's composed of bells, gongs, metallophones, and xylophones, and sometimes accompanied by vocals. And in his later years, he incorporated the elements of gamelan into his existing style to produce a wholly new kind of sound. So we will listen to a little bit of the gamelan here that you can hear. Has anybody ever heard the gamelan before? Just a second. Here we go, gamelan. Better. Full screen. So they have their traditional costumes, their traditional instruments, which are very different to what we're used to today. I don't know if you've ever seen these kinds of instruments before. Some of they have mutes and different kinds of like things that they put on their drumsticks so that to produce different kinds of sounds, right? Here it's like almost like if he's playing on pots, right? Interesting. I love the costumes. I think they're so beautiful. Okay. That's all from the gamelan for today. So he was influenced by this, which is really interesting to me. Okay, and then So also during the time in the late 1890s, he frequently visited cafes like Chez Pousset, Chez Tromen, and Chez Vachette, where he made friends with other musicians. And he also traveled a lot. He visited Beirut and Rome and Brittany. So to me, it was like one of the most interesting parts. Like it seems that Debussy was one of the most eccentric composers when it came to his love life. He was very, very like scandalous, had tons of affairs, and like actually, like it's very sad. Like he married twice, and both of his ex-wives tried to commit suicide. I couldn't believe like when I heard this. It's just like super, super dramatic. I don't know what kind of effect he had on women, but like if you listen to his music, like somebody when I was talking to this about somebody said that like his music was like some of the most beautiful music that I had ever heard. So I don't know what kind of person he was, but the person who produces this kind of music must have been some kind of very, very interesting person. So in 1904, he left his wife of 5 years, Rosalie Texier, to live with Emma Bardak, a rich woman who he would eventually marry. And his private life was more than a little stressful. He had a number of high-profile affairs, and he broke off an engagement. And the couple actually were forced to flee to England in 1905 after causing controversy in France. So here is a video just talking about that, which I thought was really interesting. I'm gonna play it for you. Just a second. About his life and about his loves. Debussy.
Here we are in Saint-Germain-en-Laye, just to the west of Paris, in Claude Debussy's birthplace. Debussy was born in this house in 1862, and he and his parents lived here for 2.5 years. The house is now a museum full of intriguing objects which tell us a great deal about Debussy's life and music. In fact, his parents owned a porcelain shop which was located downstairs. When Debussy was a student at the Paris Conservatoire, he had what I think of as the ideal, ultimate student holiday job. He travelled to Russia to the home of Madame von Meck, the fabulously wealthy patroness of Tchaikovsky. And these were the days before gramophone recordings. So he was the house pianist. He would play the piano for her entertainment. He also formed part of a piano trio in the house, and he taught some of her many children. For somebody like Debussy from a modest lower middle class background who'd never had very much opportunity to travel, it must have been extraordinary. In later life, Debussy absolutely hated travel. He was very much someone who preferred to stay at home with his own company, focusing on his work. It's interesting to note, therefore, that he had this interest in Japanese and Chinese objects. It was as if he was traveling in his imagination rather than in reality. However, his friend Victor Ségalon did travel to China, and he brought back several objects, rather like the chimney piece that we can see in the Maison Claude Debussy here in Saint-Germain-en-Laye. Debussy clearly had extraordinary effects on women. His first serious girlfriend was called Gaby with the green eyes, as she was known, and he was with her at the time he composed the Prélude à l'après-midi d'un faune in the early 1890s. And when the relationship broke down, she tried to commit suicide by shooting herself. By a horrible coincidence, his first wife, Lily Texier, also tried to commit suicide by the same means and thankfully was not successful.
Pretty crazy.
On this wall of the museum, we can see Debussy's two wives, and they seem to be looking at each other. His first wife, Lily Texier, was an attractive young woman, a model, but she didn't really have any serious artistic interests. Debussy left her in 1904 for the married woman, Emma Bardak, who had two children and was an excellent amateur singer. In fact, she previously had an affair with Gabriel Fauré, who wrote his song cycle La Bonne Chanson for her. Debussy and Emma Bardak eloped to Jersey, where he composed L'Île Joyeuse, its wonderful piano piece. And later, in 1905, they visited Eastbourne, where he composed most of La Mer.
I love this piece.
They married a few years later, much to the disapproval of her family, who cut her off. And they went to live in a rather grand house on Avenue de la Bois de Boulogne, which was well above Debussy's means. In order to maintain their lifestyle, Debussy became hugely in debt to his publisher, Durand. Though after his death in 1918, Emma Bardak suddenly became a rather astute businesswoman, selling various manuscripts to different locations all over the world. Many of these manuscripts have since been bought by the Bibliothèque Nationale, where they can be studied by researchers.
All right, so I thought that was like really interesting thing to show you. Okay, so I also wanted to show you some okay, I don't have so much time to show you all of this, but it's fine, we can just go on. So let's talk about his music. So early music from the early period are smaller works such as Tourbesques, very famous piece, Valse Romantique, Suite Bergamasque, which I played today, and Fête Galante. The Newman book author quoted that, like Chopin, the Debussy of this early period is a liberator from Germanic styles of composition, showing an exodus style capable of showing not only gaiety and musicality, but also depth of emotion. About his compositional style. So, glittering passages and webs of figurations which distract from occasional absence of tonality. Number two, frequent use of parallel chords, which are in essence not harmonies at all, but rather chordal melodies, and rich unisons described by some writers as non-functional harmonies. Bitonality, or at least bitonal chords. That means two kinds of tonalities going on at the same time. Use of the whole tone and the pentatonic scale. The pentatonic scale is a 5-note scale that they used to use like a long time ago. Unprepared modulations without any harmonic bridge. This was also, he was basically breaking all the rules. So he concludes that Debussy's achievement was the synthesis of monophonic based melodic tonality with harmonies and those different from the harmonic tonality. So his most famous works and pieces were written in the mid 1890s and mid 1900s, and they include the String Quartet in 1893, Pellé's et Mélisande opera in 5 acts, Nocturnes for Orchestra, and La Mer. Okay, so let's listen to just a little bit of La Mer, like 1 or 2 minutes. This piece wasn't so well received because it caused outrage but because he caused outrage by leaving his wife. But now it's one of his most beloved works. Just a second.
When advertising on YouTube, I know that making an authentic video with a clear call to action is the key to getting results. That's why YouTube offers tools.
Sorry about that. So here's La Mer, the sea. I'm just trying to get to where the action is a little bit. Here we go. Beautiful descriptions of the sea. You can really use your imagination when you're listening to this. since we can't travel with that much, not as much, we can at least enjoy the beautiful music and think of all these different beautiful places where we can go. And he also travels more in his imagination than he actually liked to travel, which is interesting. Okay, that's the Lamere. You can listen to it on your own. I really encourage you after this class to explore, you know, his music if you haven't already. So his music is often described as impressionist, but he wasn't a fan of the label. He said, "I'm trying to do something different," what the imbeciles calls impressionism, a term which is poorly used as possible, particularly by the critics. So there's another piece for the piano, one of his most famous works that I'm working on right now. It's called Sit Poorly the Piano. And this is in Halford's view, one of the first examples of the mature Debussy as a composer, and in which he used an enlargement of the piano sonorities. So one of the most famous pieces for piano also is Estampes, which is Prints for the Piano, written in 1903, which describes exotic locations such as Granada in Spain, as well as Orbec, a town in Normandy, and makes use of the gamelan sounds. So, of the later works from 1906 to 1917, his orchestral work Image or Pictures is better known. For example, number 4 employs traditional British and French folk tunes and makes the central movement Iberia far longer than the other ones, all inspired by the scenes from the Spanish life. So in this piece, he abandoned the whole tone scale and he was just using the octatonic scale. So octatonic scale is basically any kind of scale, basically any kind of scale composed of whole and half steps. Okay. So also, he was a very, very important composer for piano. During my whole musical education, I played a lot of Debussy preludes, very, very famous. A prelude is a musical composition, usually brief. That's also it's called a prelude because it usually always precedes something. Like it's not like it's a small musical form, but not as important form as like a sonata or something like that. And the term is generally applied to any piece preceding a religious or secular ceremony, including, in some instances, an operatic performance. So, with preludes, Debussy explored all kind of subjects, from the frolics of minstrels at Eastbourne in 1905, the American acrobat General Levine, and to the dead leaves and the sounds of scents of the evening air. So also etudes are very, very famous for piano. They're sometimes like super hard, like almost like to the point of like some people just like maybe attempt like a few. I don't know, like there's some people who attempted to play a lot of them, but not that many that I know, like in my personal opinion. So the etude excuse me. So Leisure wrote 80 years later, rates him among Debussy's greatest latest works. He says, behind the pedagogic exterior, these 12 pieces explore abstract intervals, or in at least 5, the sonorities and timbres particular to the piano. Okay. Some of Debussy's music, like the Prelude de l'Après de Midi d'un Faune, Prelude to the Afternoon of the Faune, which is a symphonic poem for orchestra, was so harmonically unusual that it didn't please the critics of the time. So one of the critics even said like the faun must have had a horrible afternoon, which I thought was like really funny. Okay, so he took many years to achieve his mature style. So only when he was 40 years old, but by that time he was already mature, and he achieved that style with his opera, the only opera he ever wrote, which was Pelé et Melisande. So let's listen to just a little bit of that, if you guys want to listen. Oh, sorry, I don't have the link. That's okay. You can just keep going. Oh no, it's here's the link. Hold on. All right.
So you've got your own business and you're doing everything you can to promote it, but marketing doesn't always.
Sorry about this. This is how YouTube works. You know that. So this is the only opera he ever wrote. Oh, you can actually see the opera here. Has anybody here seen this opera? I've never seen this opera. I don't think it's not oftenly performed, very rarely performed. Okay, I don't have a lot of time, sorry. Okay, so good. Okay, so what else did Debussy do? He also, just a second. Sorry about that. Okay, so he was also greatly influenced by symbolism and symbolist poetic movement of the later 19th century. So symbolism was a late 19th century art movement. So let's just talk a little bit at the end about Impressionism and Debussy. Okay, so which is really interesting. So the application of the term Impressionist to Debussy and the music he influenced has been much debated both during his lifetime and since. So Richard Langham-Smith writes that Impressionism was originally a term that described the style of the late 19th century French painting, typically seen suffused with reflected light, in which the emphasis is on the impression rather than the clarity of the detail. So some of the painters were Monet, Pissarro, and Renoir. Okay. So then Langham-Smith writes that the term became transferred to compositions of Debussy and others, which were concerned with the representation of landscape and natural phenomena, particularly the water, the light imagery dear to Impressionists, through subtle textures suffused with instrumental color. Okay, so Debussy was actually very influenced by some of the painters from this time. So he particularly admired Turner and as well Whistler. So let's just take a look at some of Whistler's paintings. Just a second. So you can see what he was influenced by. So here's one of the painters he was mostly influenced by. Sea in the Rain, Nocturne, Blue Silver, Chelsea, The Chelsea Girl, Nocturne in Black and Gold, beautiful paintings, as you can see. Very good, thank you. So yeah, basically I'm about to wrap this up, and thank you so much for listening today. As a conclusion, like, did you like the class? What did you think of the class? You can give me your suggestions or your comments, and this is my website where you can find out more about me and what I do.
I loved your playing. Thought that was great.
Thank you so much. And you know, if you ever like want lessons, or if you want to talk about the Debussy or anything else, or if you ever are interested in my concerts, you know, or like, I'm not doing that many concerts these days because of Corona, but hopefully soon I'll be able to perform again. You know, you can contact me, you can check me out. So do you guys have any questions about this class? Jared, you can talk if you want again.
I could sit here and talk all day about music.
That's so great. Me too. Like, you know, like, I'm so happy to have people who are so, you know, enthusiastic, and like, I hope this class answered some of your questions, you know, that you were asking, like about.
Yeah, I'm trying to get people to like learn more about the composers and the era that they were composing in themselves. Like, I recognize many, although I can't name every single one of them. So I'm trying to get more into the atmosphere, you know, and with Debussy, I always, you know, picture that because of the Impressionist thing and the happy times going around Paris, and Maxime's at that time is a reflection of his music. That's how I always classified it. That could be very wrong. That's just how it is in my mind.
I think you're right. I think also, like, you know, in like French people really like to enjoy life. I think it's like,
hence Maxime's in the 20s, like right, you know, at the end of his life.
Yeah, I feel like it's like, you know, even whenever you go there, I feel like, you know, I had some I don't know if it's like still like that now, but I feel like, you know, people who like move from France to North America, they always feel like, you know, North America people like work too much as opposed to like, you know, like the quality of life that they
live to work versus work to live. That's how it is. It's that way with everyone, you know. Every time I'm in Europe a lot, and everyone's just like, wow, how do you like do that whole live to work thing? And I'm like, no, that's why I'm moving over here. It's like,
yeah, it's like they have a, like, you know, they have a really like, but it's like, I think the French are like specific for that, you know. They're just like, they really, really, really enjoy life. So I think that's what you hear in their music. They're just like kind of like, you can like, for me, like if I listen to his music, I can just imagine some like beautiful, you know, garden in Paris where he's just kind of like going for walks, or just sitting and relaxing in a cafe, talking to his friends, and like,
Yep.
you know, or like going to a museum, or just like any kinds of things that you would do if you were like, if you were visiting Paris. So really trying to like, and you know, us as artists, I feel we really have a heightened sense of that, because like the more and more you play music, the more and more like it's so spiritual, it's so fulfilling that it really brings you closer to some kind of like, I feel like it's like a meditative state. So I think this is why us musicians really, really enjoy life. And I think if you enjoy life, the more you enjoy your life, the better your music is going to be, and like the more you experience life, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about, yes, yeah, exactly. Jared says, way better stay alive when you enjoy your surroundings and atmosphere. Exactly. And like, you know, I feel that like everybody should like, I don't know how much you guys enjoy life, but like I feel that no matter what, no matter even like during this time, if you enjoy your life, you know, if you like, if you relax and like don't think about like, you know, everything you have to do every day and all these things, responsibilities. Even if you relax during your work life will be better, I think. Like, okay, take it seriously, but also, you know, be kind of like almost like being like in a meditative, relaxed state when you're doing your work, and that helps a lot, I think. Of course,
that's their music. That's their music too. Like certain pieces, you can tell when they wrote it through hardship and stuff like that, and that applies to music from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. Like my favorite band, you know, I love the band Metallica, and I can tell you when like the suicidal songs and the deep like angry songs that they wrote, when you go back and look at the history of what was going on with the band at that time, it makes total sense.
Yeah, but I feel like this is what music is all about. Like that's why, you know, we love music, because it helps us connect to our emotions, and like, you know, just listen to music and like enjoy your life. And I will see you some other time. I have to go now. And thanks so much for listening. If you want, you can contact me. Here's my website one more time. And thank you, and enjoy your day.
Perfect. Have a good one.
Bye. You too. Thank you. Bye. Bye. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks.